Good evening, guys. Today we are going to see a small concept called the interpreter. Okay. Previously, we have seen briefly introduction of the compiler. Now we are going to see another translator, which is similar to compiler, that is known as interpreter. When we come to compiler and interpreter, both are translators only. Okay. Their aim is to convert the high-level language to machine language. Both will do the same thing, but there is a slight difference between compiler and the interpreter. Clear? But work is same. Their job is to convert a higher level program into machine level only, but slight difference in between them. Okay, the difference between the compiler as well as the interpreter is when we come to the compiler will first convert the source code to machine code. Okay, then the machine code will run. That means first from the source code, machine code will be generated. That is exe file will be generated. After exe file is generated, then only exe file will run. Okay, but when we come to the interpreter, okay, the source code will be converted to machine code while the program is in running. That means running of the program as well as conversion from source code to machine code will both run parallelly. That is a small difference. When we come to interpreter, both running of the program as well as conversion of the program will be done simultaneously. Whereas when we come to the compiler, first conversion will be done. After conversion only, running of the program will be done. That means when we come to interpreter, first line will be converted. It will start running. Meanwhile, while first line is running, second line will be converted. It will run. Third line will be converting. It will run like that. When we come to interpreters, conversion as well as running will be done parallelly. But when we come to compiler, first conversion will be done, then only running will be there. That is the main difference between the compiler and interpreter. If you observe the diagram, first compiler is converting source code to machine code, then output is coming. Okay, when we give source code to interpreter directly, we are getting output. That means machine code and running both will be run at the same time. Okay, machine code and conversion to machine code as well as running of the program will be done at the same time. That is the thing, how compiler works and how interpreter works. And when we come to this interpreter, one more important difference is compiler will scan the entire program at a time. Compiler will scan the entire program at a time, and it will convert the entire program into machine code. Whereas when we come to the interpreter, it will scan the program line by line. Okay, and each line will be converted to machine code. First line will be scanned, it will be converted to machine code. Second line it will be converted. Okay, when we come to the compiler, okay, it will scan entire program and all the errors will be listed at a time. In case of compiler, all the errors will be listed at a time. But when we come to the interpreter, since it is scanning line by line, okay, whenever there is an error at some line, until that error is rectified, it don't go to the remaining one. It don't scan the remaining lines. For example, if there is an error in third line, it will stop there itself until you solve the error in third line. It don't see the face of fourth line, fifth line, remaining lines. Okay, but when we come to the case of compiler, it will scan entire program and it will list all the errors at a time. That is the thing. Yeah, that is the thing. It will scan at a time and all the list of errors will be given at a time. When we come to the interpreter, each line will be scanned and errors of each line only will be displayed at a time. That is briefly. Now, when we come to this one, some important differences between compiler and interpreter when we compare those things. Okay, the main difference is first input. When we come to the input point of view, okay, compiler will take entire program as an input. For conversion, compiler will take entire program at a time as an input. When we come to interpreter, it will take single line at a time for as a input for conversion. When we want to convert the source code by compiler, it will take entire program as an input at a time. When we come to interpreter, it will take single line at a time as a input for conversion output. When we come to the compiler will generate the intermediate object code, while conversion it will generate the intermediate code also. Okay, but when we come to the interpreter, there is no intermediate code, object code. Directly we will get the output and machine code and output only. There is no intermediate object code. In case of compiler, there is some intermediate object code will be generated. We will see that one in the structure of compiler later. What is this intermediate object code? Next, when we come to the working mechanism, okay, the compilation will be done before execution. As already we said, compilation process will be done first, then execution will be done later. But when we come to interpreter, both compilation and execution will done simultaneously. Both are simultaneous process. When we come to the speed, okay, compiler is somewhat more speed when we compare with the interpreter. Why? Because compiler will scan the program, all the errors are given at a time, so that the program will correct each error he will see, and he will convert, he will cover all the errors at a time. But when we come to interpreter at a time, it will give only one error. After it is solved, then only it will give. Again, we have to compile. We have to scan, give it to interpreter. Again, it will scan the next line like that, line by line. So it was somewhat slower when we compare with compiler. Next, when we come to the memory requirement point, okay, compiler also wants the more memory when we compare with interpreter. The reason is, in case of compilation, some intermediate object code is generated, which is not generated in case of interpreter. So there is some, in case of compiler, some extra memory is required for storing that intermediate object code, which is not required in case of interpreter. When we come to the errors point of view, compiler will display all the errors at a time at the same time. Okay, when we come to interpreter, it will display error in of each line one by one only. When we come to error detection, in case of compiler, it is a difficult process. Why? Because it has to find all the errors at a time. Error detection is somewhat difficult in compiler, but when we come to interpreter, it is easy. Why? Because at a time it is scanning only one line, so it is easy for identification of errors. Next, example programming languages of compiler are regularly we know very well C, C++, Java. All these are the compiler-oriented languages. And when we come to the Python intermediate-oriented, regularly we have used Python, Perl, PHP, Ruby, etc. All are used the interpreter. In these Python, you already seen in your 2.1. We will learn about PHP, Perl, and Ruby in our future classes. That is in 4.1 web technologies. This is briefly the interpreter and compiler, comparison of interpreters and compilers. Is it clear, guys? That is totally about the today's concept of interpreter. I think you have now you have some idea about this interpreter. Is it okay, guys? Thank you very much.